Hey everyone, this is Mario again, coming at you with another movie review. As you can see, I'm wearing my concert shirt today, so it's gonna be a good day. Anyway, today I'm reviewing a movie that I just revisited for the first time in over 10 years, because we've had this DVD for about that long, and I have not watched it since we first got it, and I liked it okay when I first saw it, and I've been meaning to watch it, especially considering the crap that this director has done. But you guys remember not that long ago I did a re-rant on his last movie before his next movie, which has Will Smith and Smith's son in it, which looks like it might be okay. But anyway, this is the last film that he did that most critics loved, because the following film it was more mixed than this movie, and then after that everyone's hated his movies. But I decided to give this film another watch, because like I said, it's been a long time since I've seen it, and I didn't want to review it without it being fresh in my mind. And also I wanted to see if the film held up for me, and that of course is the 2002 movie starring Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix, directed by M. Night Shyamalan, Signs. Yes, this is the DVD, back when all DVDs got good releases. But anyway, now of course I remember when this movie came out, how it was getting all those good praises from critics, and of course all the commercials, like the one with the little girl. There's a monster outside my room, can I have a glass of water? But you have to say, if there's one thing about this, the little girl actress in this movie, she can't really act. But then again, maybe the character was written that way, I don't know, because the way it comes off that both kids are kind of detached and kind of psychotic, at least to an extent, but I'll get to that later. Now, of course, we all know M. Night Shyamalan, how he started with the films Praying with Anger and Wide Awake, which I never hear anyone to talk about, especially Wide Awake. All I have to say is Rosie O'Donnell does a baseball-loving nun, that's all I gotta say. And of course, his film, which is considered to be his masterpiece, The Sixth Sense. Everyone talks about that movie. I mean, I forgot to mention it in my rant, but it was the only film that when I was in cinema literature both years, it was the only film that Miss Studi, the teacher, ever said that if anyone spoils the ending of this movie for anyone, they get an automatic F on the critique. Only film she ever said that for. So that just shows that she knew the impact that the twist ending would have. Because it is a twist ending. It was before all of his endings had twists, but it is a twist that when I saw the movie I didn't see it coming. Then of course we got Unbreakable, which is a movie that I've heard mixed things about. I know it's on Matt's favorite Bruce Willis films list, and one of my friends thinks it's just an okay movie. And me, I want to give it a watch before I pass judgment. I know Doug Walker, the nostalgia critic, likes it, and he says that part of the reason is because of the whole concept of fate and destiny. It kind of scares him, and he likes how I was using the movie. Then of course we get this movie, which I'll tell you my thoughts on in a bit. Then we got The Village, like I mentioned already. Lady in the Water, The Happening, which the only good review I've ever heard of that is from that guy who does good bad flicks, which you should check out that review of it. It's kind of funny. Then of course we get the movie that just saying the title makes me wanna have a nerd rage. The Last Airbender. Oh, that feels better. Then of course his next movie, After Earth. But I will say, after watching this movie, my opinion is this: M. Night Shyamalan, he is a great director, but when it comes to writing, he really needs to be controlled. I mean, he can set up shots good, he can make the film look good and stuff. That is okay. If he had stuck with just that side of filmmaking, we'd be talking about then that one prediction that was made when this movie came out, that he's the next Spielberg, would probably be correct, because he would have directed masterpiece after masterpiece. But the fact that he's both writing and directing his movies, and probably his script is the one that's used, bad idea. I feel that when he comes up, that's Molly. When it comes to the stories for his films, I feel that he should come up with the original idea, maybe write the first draft, but then hand it over to a seasoned screenwriter to tighten up the story and actually make some of the stuff make more sense. And also the fact is, also if they don't do that, they shouldn't really bring out his movies like, you know, they're serious movies, because that, I have to say, is probably one of the main problems with this movie's release, is that it comes out like a serious movie. But in all honesty, I will say, before I get into this, I like Signs. That's what I'm going to say, I like it. But here's the reason why. I see it as basically a big budget B movie, because it cost $72 million to make, and it made $408 million, so it made back its budget. But the way the movie is, the plot, more so with the plot, because the acting is fine, and like I said, the direction's fine. The plot and the way it's written, it comes off like a B movie. That's why I say it's a big budget B movie. And you guys know I like B movies. So for that I can enjoy it. But there are some stuff I'm going to discuss. Now the plot in the movie is we got Graham Hess, played by Mel Gibson, who's a former reverend. His wife, Colleen, was killed in a traffic accident, which was caused by this guy named Ray Reddy, who was, of course, played by M. Night Shyamalan, who always has a small cameo in each of his movies. Yeah, the accident basically left Graham embittered and caused him to renounce his faith in God, and so he left the ministry. He lives on this farm on the outskirts of town with his kids, Morgan, played by Rory Culkin, and Bo, played by Abigail Breslin, which, of course, you know, she went on to get nominated for an Academy Award, which she went on to better things, but here, I don't know if this was her first acting job, which, I'm going to check that real quickly. Let me check good old Wikipedia, where they usually have, yeah, she's 16 now, so she has gone on to do better things, like I said, the Oscar nomination. Yes, this was her first film. After this, she did Raising Hell and Princess Diaries, too. Oh, only 4 years later, she got nominated for an Academy Award, which I'm glad she didn't win, because then, think of it, at that age, what was she like? She's 16 now, so she would have been 6 then, so it would have been, she was 10 when she got nominated, give or take. Think of it, winning the Oscar at the age 10, to quote Super Comic Guru, all downhill from here, unless you win the award again. Yeah, I think you get the point now. Here, I'll get to it in a bit. Anyway, he also lives with his younger brother Merrill, who was a former minor league baseball player who apparently has a couple records, one that he's proud of and one that he's not, which I'm not going to spoil it because it's kind of important, but he does have a bat on the wall, I'll say. One morning, they find these crop circles in the yard. They think it's a hoax, especially Graham. That night, of course, Bo wakes up Graham, and him and his brother go outside, and they see people running around. They think it's these brothers and stuff, but then they begin to suspect it's something else. And the next day, more reports of these crop circles appearing up, and especially of lights in the sky, and slowly but surely, Graham begins to suspect that maybe it actually is something. Especially when he goes out in the cornfield one night and actually sees something strange there. As we see in one of the commercials, it's basically it's an extraterrestrial. But these aren't like ETs, like friend. No, these are aliens more in the sense of the War of the World aliens, except they're not coming out in war machines. They're doing more. They're not doing, you know, like invading, like rape and pillage, like hunt attacking. They're basically doing like James Bond, Mission Impossible, sneak in, all super elaborate stuff. You can just imagine the aliens humming the Mission Impossible theme, sneaking through the corn, and of course, eventually, the film has them basically laying low in their house, and then from there it goes into the climax of the movie, which I'm not going to talk about. But basically, let's just say Graham regains his faith. That's all I'm going to say. And of course, that's all I'm going to say about the plot. Well, at least in the synopsis form, the rest of us can be talked about. Like I said earlier, the acting is not a problem in this movie. Gibson, you know, Gibson is typical Gibson. Not his best performance, but he's there. Joaquin Phoenix, not his best performance either, but he's still pretty good. This is the first movie I saw him in, and then of course, you know, I saw him later, and of course, Walk the Line, where he played the legendary Johnny Cash. Hello, I'm Johnny Cash. And then of course, before this, he also played the villain in Gladiator, which is the film that I revisited partially a couple weeks ago, which I gotta watch the ending of it before I do a review of it, but let's just say it's kind of holding up for me, but we'll get to a review for that later. And of course, now Rory Culkin and Abigail Breslin, they are okay at best. I mean, like I said, Abigail, not her best performance. She comes off like she's monotone. She has that monotone voice at times reading her lines. Rory, it's the way Rory does his scenes, it feels like he's on something. I mean, is his character supposed to be on Ritalin or something? And it also comes off the way he says stuff and how he acts throughout the movie. He comes off as psychotic. It's like, did his mother's death really affect him that much, or was he always like this? He comes off a little bit like how his older brother is in The Good Son, but of course that movie I got to revisit too. But I liked that as a kid. But he comes off like that, and it makes you wonder: is he in league with the aliens? Is he plotting for world domination? Is he going to hand over the planet to the aliens in exchange for world to control it? Is he the Stewie Griffin of this family? Victory is mine! That would be funny. And then, of course, the sister, something wrong with her, too. I just noticed that. I'm like, these kids are starting to scare me. Mel Gibson, I think you might want to go lethal weapon on them before they do something. And then, of course, when it comes to the aliens landing, how stupid are these aliens to land in a cornfield owned by Mel Gibson? Apparently they never saw Lethal Weapon. Or, and of course, this is before his whole rants thing, but of course, I can just imagine his rants on extraterrestrial life, talking to the cop, and don't get me started on aliens! That would actually be funny to hear. Mel Gibson ranting on aliens, that would be funny to hear, actually. You're just sitting up there in your spaceships, ain't probing for anuses. I don't know, but it just would be funny to hear. M. Night Shyamalan, this is probably his biggest, as far as I know, this is his biggest role in any of his movies. You should just stick to cameo roles, man, because important roles. He doesn't really, not really as good. His little cameo as a doctor in Sixth Sense was way better, but for what it is, it's okay. Now, of course, now I gotta address two of the biggest issues that people have with this movie: the aliens being weak against water, and the fact that this is probably the funniest moment in Doug Walker's review of this, that the aliens, they can travel through space, they have space technology far exceeding our own, but they can't open doors. That I will address first. Think of it. And now think of this. As Charlie Sheen said in Scary Movie 3, they mastered space flight, but they can't get through a wooden door. A wooden door eludes their minds or something. You gotta bring the bottom. Just funny, because it's just funny to think about it. E.T. could figure out how to open a door. A toddler can figure out how to open a door if he can reach it. Hell, even the velociraptors from Jurassic Park, creatures that could never figure out how to fly a spaceship, let alone even contemplate leaving the planet, figured out how to open a door. But these aliens cannot figure it out. It's just like, what? But believe it or not, I know it sounds like I'm complaining about it, which I'm just pointing out some stuff, and yes, I'm checking my phone real quick. I don't really have that big an issue with one part of it. Another part of it I do. The part I don't have issue with is the pantry door part, and that's because the door is locked. They mention subtly in dialogue, and also you can tell just from looking at the bodies, but I don't think the aliens physically are stronger than people. And the pantry door does look like it's a pretty thick door, and the house looks old, so it's probably thick wood. A normal human male of average size and strength would probably not be able to break through that with his bare hands. He'd probably need an axe, you know. It's like, you know, like in The Shining. Wendy, I'm home. Like that. Which, of course, they actually had to use a real door for that scene because Jack Nicholson's a former firefighter, so... former volunteer firefighter, actually, but I think you get the point. An alien weaker than a human physically, I don't think they'd be able to break through a thick pantry door. Now, if it was stronger, then yeah, but from some of the stuff, I'm guessing that they're physically weaker than a human. Especially if they're weak against water, which I'll get to that in a few minutes. Now, the part that I will complain about is when the family is all trapped in the basement. And them stacking the wood stuff against the coal chute, that I don't have a problem with. Maybe the aliens can't push it over. Or maybe there's only room enough to fit one and they figure out they'll tap. Yeah, if they figure out this, they figured out our strategy, dang it. But I don't think, they didn't lock the door, and all they stopped it was putting up a pickaxe to break the door, and you hear them pushing against the door hard. How the hell did they not knock that pickaxe over? I mean, you would think eventually, after a night of pushing at a door, the pickaxe would probably budge and then they'd be able to get into the door. There is the rub, because that, even though that door looks thick, a lot of budging is eventually probably going to get pickaxe to shake loose. I don't know, because I've never put a pickaxe against the door to brace it, but you would figure it eventually would move. I think even Scary Movie 3 made fun of that, but the boarding up the house and stuff, that I don't have a problem with, because like I said before, a normal human probably would have difficulty getting past that. So an alien physically weaker than a human, yeah, I can buy that. But the pickaxe door, no. Now, when it comes to the water hurting the aliens, that, believe it or not, I don't really have a problem with. It comes more as part of the B-movie vibe of the film, like I said, but I don't really have a problem with it. And they also do kind of explain it a little bit in the movie. I mean, the aliens don't go anywhere near large bodies of water, so they probably are aware. It's like, hey, we're coming to a planet that's filled mostly with our weakness. We got to make sure when we're invading to stay away from it. And of course, it's discovered by accident, so you got that. And also, you would think the same thing about War of the Worlds. I mean, the aliens are defeated by something in that movie that was basically on the planet. You know, bacteria and viruses, and they didn't have protection against that. Granted, they came in war machines, so they probably had physical protection for a little bit, but still they were destroyed by something. But I think with the bacteria and stuff, I haven't read War of the Worlds or seen any of the movies. I think they did not foresee that, where the aliens in this movie could probably foresee it'd be a problem. But they would probably figure that since we humans have never actually come in contact with them recently, with aliens recently, we'd probably be too scared by them attacking, especially with the covert operation, to notice it. But then again, we might be able to, because at the end of the movie they do beat the aliens back, and then of course it's only through the family having to deal with that one alien that they discover the weakness. But it acting like acid to them, I could actually buy that, because just because they're humanoid in appearance doesn't mean that splashing water is not going to do anything on them. Maybe they evolved on a planet where something that would burn our skin is basically like water than them. Who knows? It's never really explained. It's left up to the imagination with that. But the water being like acid, I don't have a problem with. And like I said, with the door thing, the only part I have a problem with is the pickaxe thing. And the only other stuff that really comes off as kind of iffy is probably the back and forth between the characters of Ray and Graham. I mean, granted it was an accident, but don't you think the guy would still be a little pissed at Ray for what happened to his wife? Maybe they buried the hatchet already over that, or maybe. But the scene where they're talking about the wife, it doesn't really seem realistic. But and that's one of the reasons why I think that M. Night should let other people stand up his dialogue. Most of that scene is like, you're telling the guy whose wife you killed, even if it was an accident, that it felt like it meant to be. Boy, M. Night, you really are a dick. But then of course the scene, you know, don't open the pantry at luck, one of them in there. Most of the dialogue for that scene's bad, but it ends on a high note, at least for me. But like I said, M. Night should let other people write his dialogue. And then, of course, the set design's pretty well. The score is really what makes the movie work, because it's kind of creepy and it sets the tone of the movie. Oh yeah, the design of the aliens, not fully original. It takes the gray design and like tweaks it a little bit to be sort of new, so I like it. And it does kind of have kind of the Jaws mechanic, where the most of the movie, the most we only see is like some of the lights, and then of course the crop circles, and we don't really see the alien close up until the end of the movie. Like we see a hand, we see them from a distance in the shadows, we see like part of it before it runs into the corn, and then of course we see his full body shot in clear daylight from a distance on grainy video. The first time we actually see him in that scheme where Joaquin Phoenix is watching the TV. Move, children, vámonos! That I feel worked, because it's like I said, it's a Jaws principle where you don't see a lot of it and it makes you anticipate it, and I feel it kind of works. Especially how they build up the reveal that the alien is at the end, because you see it first through the TV, which I thought that was kind of cool. That's why I say M. Night's a good director, but he's a piss poor writer. And then of course the fact the movie doesn't really have a full-on ending where they don't really explain everything that happens, but for this I feel it works, because it does really show that the events of this movie did help Mel Gibson's character regain his faith, which no explanation through dialogue, but from what you see you can. Oh yeah, there's one other thing I forgot to mention. The whole swing away thing. Now of course, this is one of the major complaints that some people have with this movie, which I can see why, because if you go with the interpretation some people have that God planned all this just to test Mel Gibson's faith, kind of similar to that one story in the Bible where him and the devil made a bet, where if the guy would they could see if the guy would stay faithful to God, and he did, and so he was given 10 times what he lost. I have to say that in the Bible story that works, but in a movie like this it really doesn't if you go with that interpretation. And it makes you think, God's an a-hole if he's doing this to Mel Gibson. Then again, with Mel Gibson's more recent attitude, you could say he probably deserves it. Oh, you're going to rat on my chosen people in the future? You're going to lose your wife, Mel. You could think of that. But it's like, what did Lucifer show up one day? It's like, hey, God, remember that bet we made eons ago? Yes, Lucifer, what is it this time? You want to make it known? Yeah. You know that guy right there? Yeah, that's the guy on the farm, the preacher, yeah? Let's do something similar. Let's take away his wife, and let's send aliens in after him and see if he's still faithful or not. Lucifer, have you been watching War of the Worlds again? Nah, no, I haven't been watching War of the Worlds. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You seriously need to get another hobby. What, torturing the souls of the people you send to me? Ah, come on, that's fun. Oh, right, well, Joe, but I gotta run it by my wife first. Oh, you gotta run everything by your wife first. God. Yeah, of course, she's the mother. Is it because she's an elven queen? Yes, you know, Galadriel. My wife. They don't seem to be going for it. They obviously don't get this reference. Note to self, never connect those two again. Make Eddie Izzard references more obvious next time. Oh, I think I just did. Anyway, the wife thing, I view it more like this. I view it that she just got hit by a car, and the truck, excuse me, and her body's being held together by a truck. I have a feeling that someone like that is not going to be in the best mental mind. Like, she says something about take care of the kids or something, and then the whole, when it leads up to the swing away thing, I don't remember if the movie states how long Merle has been retired, but if he's been retired for a while, I have a feeling that I view it more as her probably not being fully aware of everything and then just slipping back, thinking Merle's there because she knows Merle played. Maybe she thinks that he's still in there and telling him to swing away, you know, to keep his best at going with it. And then also the fact that Mel Gibson happened to think of it when the alien was there. I think it's probably because he was thinking about the night for the last couple of days, and then they're in the room with the alien, and it's the same room where the bat is. That it just came that part of the memory came to mind, and then he just tells his brother to swing away. That's how I interpret it. I don't go with the whole thing, you know, God did all this elaborate crap in order to test Mel Gibson's fate. That for me is kind of a pretentious way to look at the film. I think it's more just a coincidence that Mel does the whole thing. At least that's how I view it. If you view it the other way, it's fine with me. To me, that's just a pretentious way. But anyway, like I said, the movie's kind of like a big budget B movie to me. And of course, last time I checked it as a 6.8 on IMDb, which after watching the movie, I could see more or less what people would give it that. I think it should probably be a little lower. I think it should be like a 6 at most on there, maybe. And I actually want to go through the reviews and see how many of them are giving it to overly praise, like, oh, this is the best movie of all time. And I want to see if there's any percentage of people in there who actually like the movie, who view it the same way I do. It's like a big budget B movie. Which, of course, if you look, like I said, if you look at the movie through that way, you're going to enjoy it. But if you look at it in a serious light, you're going to be disappointed and think, this movie is too silly to be taken seriously. How did the critics all give it 4? There's 4 out of 4s. Which, of course, you can tell from that I'm not giving it a 5 out of 5. My rating for this movie, in all honesty, since I enjoy it, despite the things I've complained about it, I like the movie more than hate it, I'd have to say probably a 4 out of 5. Or maybe it's... Yeah, I'm trying to see if 3.5 would be more. Yeah, because... Yeah, 4 out of 5 is probably... Dang, if those little things I complained about were more of a problem, it'd probably be 1/2 point lower. But 4 out of 5, I think, for me, would be what it is. Like I said, it's an entertaining movie, but it's not a movie that everything is all serious in it and all that critical praise, you know, that people are like, oh, this is the best movie of all time. Yeah, right, I can name a lot of sci-fi movies that I would say are one of the greatest movies of all time, better than this. I will honestly say 2001: The Space Odyssey is a way better movie than this movie, but this is entertaining as a sci-fi movie, and I think it's a kind of a unique... I don't know if unique's the right word. It's kind of an interesting spin on the whole alien invasion thing. They're not fully invading. They're coming in all stealthy, like something out of a Tom Clancy novel, sort of. But like I said, those couple of complaints are what dragged the movie a little bit down for me. But like I said, B-movie logic.